Today I will be chatting with Raia Was, an independent music artist based in New York City. I had the pleasure and the growth inducing challenge of working as a mixing engineer for one of Raia's songs in her 2023 release, Captain Obvious. And I gotta tell you, Captain Obvious and Raya's music in general is an absolutely sublime experience that ignores the conventional pop wisdom and exists for the sole purpose of serving as an artistic statement. I'm a huge fan of Raya as a songwriter, as a musician, and especially as a producer. Here's my interview with the amazing Raya Was. All right, so let's start with from the beginning, really. When did you first become interested in music?
Wow. As a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in downtown Manhattan, and I was in ballet classes, like
Nice.
a all little girls. And I had a teacher who said to my mom that like all the kids in the class are like, there and dancing. There was live accompaniment on piano, but I was like really there for the piano player. Um, and like, man, bless teachers. That teachers pay that kind of attention is so the right teacher is so amazing. So I think when I was 6 or 7, my mom was like, "Do you want to take piano lessons?" And I was like, "What? That's an option?" Yeah, and I started studying young, and I was like really like I was writing songs really young, and I just was like really into it from like the jump.
That's extraordinary that you started writing very young. I started writing when I was in my teens, and it was
Mm.
terrible. It was like really eighth grade poetry. You know, it was like
Oh,
terrible.
same. Bad, not good.
I didn't get into decent writing that I was proud of until I was well in my 20s.
Oh, I feel the same way. I was not, I mean, but I was really committed to it. And I
Yeah.
loved the feeling of writing a song and writing it out on paper. And then I would just carry around in my pocket all day, like I had a little secret. It was really a big source of comfort for me as a kid.
That's amazing. That's very cool. So do you come from a musical family? Are your family musicians?
No, my aunt, my dad's sister, actually, that's not true. I said no, and I'm about to conflict that. I was raised mostly with my mom,
Mhm.
and her side of the family loves music. Her dad was really into jazz music, and he's from the Bronx, and like really was just like in love with the scene in Harlem, when he was
Nice.
growing up. But none of them are musicians.
Themselves.
Very artistic, but none of them are musicians. My dad, who I had much less exposure to, his sister was a concert violinist,
Oh, wow.
and both of her children are violinists. So on my dad's side, my grandmother, all three grandchildren are musicians, but I had much less exposure to them. And she had like a really tragic accident before I was born. My aunt and wasn't able to play by the time I was born. So there's like a loose connection there, but not like a it's like a nature versus nurture.
Okay.
Not the
Yeah.
nurture of it, but I guess through on half the side of my family, I do have like music in my genes.
Yeah, my story's similar. My dad loves music. He's not a musician, but he loves
Mm,
music. And then his side of the family, they're very artistic. Not musicians, but they're very artistic. A lot of painters, sculptures, that kind of thing. So
mhm,
it's in my veins. Um,
mhm.
was piano was definitely your first instrument. Is it your only instrument, or do you play others?
I play others, but it was really just piano up until college, and I sang sort of in like a gig setting, but in college I actually started to study voice, and then I out of college I'd say like a year or two after I learned guitar. I played flute also. I played flute in like the orchestra in middle school. I started to learn guitar in my like early 20s. I've been really in my bass mode at the moment in
Yeah.
electric bass, not upright. And yeah, I feel like very comfortable on lots of instruments. I would only like accept money to perform on piano and voice and synths. But yeah, I feel like really comfortable. I can feel comfortable sitting at a drum set. I just feel comfortable fucking around on anything really.
Nice. Awesome.
Sorry,
Awesome.
sorry to curse.
It's good. It's actually
Okay.
that's why I love artists.
Woo.
Um, so have you studied any formal music like theory?
Oh yeah, so much, so
Eh,
much.
And you know what? I don't even know why I asked that question because being so familiar with your music, I know you have. There's no other way to create that music unless you understand what the hell's going on.
Maybe that's funny, but I don't create from a theoretical space like at all. I've realized I'm like in the process of starting to try and write a new record, and I'm realizing that every time I write a record, I do it on an instrument I don't understand
Mm.
so that I can just be in a space
Ah,
of aesthetics and my ear, and then it's after the fact that I like look at what I've made like from a theory perspective because I'm honestly such a deep theory head. So I think I like go through phases of really trying to stretch out my ears
mhm.
but then like walk away and I definitely don't for my own music I'm like not composing thinking about theory but I've had a lot of training particularly in like a jazz realm
Cool, cool, cool. And where did you study your
at
studies?
Tulane in New Orleans.
Ah, nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool. Um,
jazz.
nice. Yeah, exactly. The best place, right? Do you remember your first music performance in front of an audience?
Wow, that's a good question. What counts as an audience?
Anything, really. Your classmates, anything. That's who was my first audience, classmates in high school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely had recitals.
Mhm.
I don't remember my first recital. I remember a pivotal, like bad recital. My foot slipped off the pedal
Oh no.
and I lost my place. And I can't remember if I was able to find my way or not, but I was so, oh my God, it was traumatizing. I remember the stress of recitals, but I have a feeling that I played before then, like maybe more in a classroom setting. I wasn't in my elementary school. I feel like I had opportunities to kind of like play in a classroom setting for students. I was in the chorus in elementary school too. Um, those were probably my first moments performing. Have you been to New York? Have you spent much time in New York?
Well, yeah, actually, I've been, as a tourist a few times, but I actually spent a month working with. Do you by any chance know Ian Kimmel?
No.
So he's a producer. He's also friends with Rachel Alina.
Oh, cool.
I did a workshop with him, and he was impressed with my production chops, and he invited me to spend a month with him in his studio in New York, and it
Nice.
was an amazing experience. It
Nice.
was
Have
mind-boggling.
when you're time here, have you ever been to the Chelsea Market
I
or
did, yes,
the
of course, yeah, yeah.
so I grew up down like by the Chelsea Market in my elementary school. Our school chorus, we performed at the opening of the Chelsea Market when the building opened, like on the first day. And that was probably there are pictures of that. I was probably 6 or 7. I bet that was probably my first like performance
Right, right, right. That's
experience.
awesome.
And
That's
I was
great.
so proud.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Just for the benefit of the audience to this video, I met Raya in a workshop where I was one of several mixers that were mixing. I mix a song for her amazing record, Captain Obvious, which I love and have burnt. Um, and um, and I think I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, right? But I think I got the most difficult song of all in the mix. Vertigo was just
100%.
it was insane. I mean, it was the most challenging thing I've ever had to mix, but it was a wonderful learning experience. And working with Raya was amazing because I never met any artist that has such tuned in ears to the production side of it. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I learned a lot. Anyway, when I was working on that record with you, I was impressed by many things. Of course, the songs, the lyrics, the overall eerie vibe you created with your music, which I love. Um, but what awed me the most was your chops as a producer. You're self-produced, right?
Mhm.
And that to me is amazing. How did you get into production? At what point in your path did you decide, yeah, I'm going to produce myself?
Mhm. Well, firstly, I'm sorry, you had the hardest song. I don't know that, I mean, that song was hard to make, and I clearly made it in like a fury, like a months-long fever dream. And you're so kind. Thank you for everything you've just said. Um, I'm a reluctant producer, I think. Like uh The first batch of music I made, I definitely like, I remember like working with a producer and like really needing the outside ears. I come from a performance background before recording background. So learning how to be a recording artist was something that like was a learning, it was a learning curve that I wasn't expecting, you know,
Uh-huh.
the way that a live performance does not translate unless it's like billed as a live performance on record really shocked me. And finding my voice as a recording artist was like one element. And I think I really needed a outside ears of a producer, like a classic producer, you know, like in the booth kind of
Hmm.
producer,
Hmm.
in order to even know that. And by my like first record as Raya, which was called Angel I'm Frightened, that record was passed through a number of different producers. A producer named Tyler Gilmore helped me start it. And then we took it to my friend Sam's spot, and he like very much like produced the live sessions and engineered it. And then like I was on the road with this artist Ocho Nouveau and was sort of like listening to those live sessions, and it just sounded so live. And he was like, "Let's bring this in for like some post production, like bring it in like into like in the box, as it were." And it was with him and this other producer, Mika Jasper, who I work with a lot in LA, who both were like encouraged me to take the live stuff, like the re-recordings of my demos, and like compare them against the demos and bring my original demos back in. And I had demoed in Logic, like just to get stuff out that I didn't know that I was producing.
Hmm.
But I have a really specific ear, and I'm not moved to compose unless the aesthetics, that like the sonic space is like really hitting my ears in a particular way. So, like I don't sit and write at the piano. Um, and anyway, those two producers were really like, your demos have vibe. Like your demos have a lot of the song in them from your approach as a producer. We think you're a producer, and I was like, well, I don't know. But I had like it was a combo of that encouragement. I had started using Ableton for my live shows, and my live shows were getting very like producing combo-y. Like
Hmm.
it was like somewhere between singer-songwriter and like DJ sets. Especially
Hmm.
I had these solo tours that I was trying to figure out how to like get without like doing like playback karaoke, how to get like the full breadth of the music out solo. Anyway, I had like I had reluctantly learned Ableton, and I had already like kind of knew my way around Logic. I had the encouragement of these other producers, and when it was time to start, when I started Captain Obvious, which was before pandemic, maybe like very, very, very late 2019, early 2020, I was just starting to hear my demos differently and like kind of treat them more seriously. And then pandemic hit, and we weren't seeing anybody. And I think the whole time I kept thinking to myself, like, eventually I'll pass this off to someone. But I just kept deciding to like take it a level further and a level further.
Hmm.
Um, and then I finished it. And then a friend, so I like, it's so scary to have that like gumption to be like, it's done and I did it by myself. Like really terrified me. And a very close, trusted friend, who's actually one of my partners on the record label I run, Switch It Records, Laura Fang, they go by Arthur Moon,
Hmm.
had me at their studio, and we posted up for like 3 months, and I just like decided that we would comb through things together, and they would just like kind of help cross check me on all my decisions, and it all stuck. And
Nice.
you know, I like just I needed someone to really be like thumbs up. This is like, and it was also at theirs that I stemmed everything out for Rachel
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Mix House, or New Music Engineering.
Well, I
Yeah.
got to tell you,
Sorry, that was so rambly. Did I even
no, no,
answer your
no, not at all.
question?
You're good. You're good. But I was in. This is. I swear to God, this is not smoke, blowing smoke up your butt. But you are one of my favorite producers, and part of that is I had the inside experience of working on that record with you. So that gives me a lot of insight into a producer's mind that I don't get otherwise. You know, and other things I work on. So that may have something to do with it. But I absolutely love, and I use a lot of your recordings as reference on a lot of the things that I work on
That's
because
so
I'm
cool.
that is just a sound that is in my head that I want to get, and
That's so
very
cool.
cool.
I mean,
Um,
the process of mixing with you all and having like I had never been the primary producer, so I wasn't the one responsible for first round mix notes ever before.
mhm.
And being like the only person giving mix notes for however many months that mix process took, like it really it that proved to me that I was a producer. You know,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
exactly what I want,
Exactly.
exactly what I'm hearing, and that process was like very finalizing in terms of my like I think ability to fill out the title of really feeling like, oh yeah, I'm a producer, like whether I want to be or not, you know?
Absolutely. I totally get that. I totally get that.
Mm.
So where do you typically record? Do you record in your home studio? Or do you actually go to a formal studio? These days, I know you've probably done a lot of different things, but right now,
Yeah,
where are you?
I have done both.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm like very loosely searching, demoing, and I'm working out of my home studio. I have recently moved and have a piano for the first time, like a real piano in my house for the first time since I was a kid. Um, and I made the decision to not put the piano in my studio space. It's in the living room.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I have a little bit of a mobile rig and I'm recording in like a kind of funny, rough and ready way in my living room at the piano and then bringing it into the studio. I like it's, and actually finding it really interesting to like mix and match as I love field recording, as you know, 'cause you worked with my Mexico City dance class field recording. Um, so I'm like kind of field recording in the living room and then bringing stuff back in,
Mhm.
super rough and ready. And then I have a couple friends in the neighborhood who will lend me their spots to like post up for the day, who have like nicer gear than I do.
Right.
Um, and yeah, that's for the most part. Weirdly, when I've gone out to LA, I've found myself in more like studios. Like I did a bunch of sessions at Red Bull. I don't know if they're still functioning, but
Mhm.
out in LA. Yeah, I can kind of work with whatever though. The
Cool.
setting
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't really like doesn't matter to me too
I,
much.
I think that's one of the things that makes you a really good producer and a very valuable artist is that you don't depend on the setting. You make the setting work for you. And I instinctively know that about you. I can tell, from your, as you said, your field recordings, all that stuff. I was like, where did
Mhm.
all this source come from? Where did all this, what is all this stuff? It was just amazing. So I'm assuming since are so versatile and are working all over the place, you do all the recording engineering yourself for the most part?
I did for Captain
Yeah.
Obvious, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and you already told me you're well versed in Ableton and Logic.
Ableton, yeah.
Any
I
any other of
started in
those?
Logic.
Okay.
No, I've never touched Pro Tools. Never have I ever.
I hate
And
Pro Tools.
Fruity Loops was too cool for me, so I was never a Fruity Loops kid.
I hate Pro Tools. I had to take it in my Berkeley curriculum, and I was like, I'm a Cubase user. I've been a Cubase user for 20 years. So
Cool.
yeah.
Nice. I've also never used Cubase.
Uh, it's incredibly powerful, but I'm biased. That's the only real tool
Hmm.
I've ever used. Um,
Hmm.
so have you always self-produced? No, you said no to that already. Can you talk about things that helped you along the way to get your production chops to where they are today? And that's one of the questions that's come from one of the artists in the label.
Yeah.
They admire your production.
Chops. Tell me more about what would mean my chops.
Techniques, your
Hmm.
ability to, I think I I say this with very little hesitation. You have one of the most critical ears I've ever witnessed. You hear stuff that I had to listen and listen and listen again until I heard it. It's like, and you heard it right away. So I imagine that's an incredibly valuable tool when you're producing.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. But those kinds of things. Any tools, techniques, processes that help you out?
Yeah. I'm a really close listener to music. Like I think I have a really particular ear. I'm learning that as I've worked more and more. That's I think my gift and my curse.
Uh,
And I think I hear things in the margins rather than like in the middle. But so I think actually a really big piece of producing for me is listening in other contexts, you
right.
know?
Right.
I really love audio art. I love audio installation. I love noise. I love like hearing something in nothing or in nothing because there's always sound. It's funny when we were talking about whether I work in a studio or not, and you were like it doesn't matter where you are because the place you're in has its like innate sound
Mm-hmm.
always.
Mm-hmm.
And I think music is just about like riding a wave in the space you're in and like finding your wave. Sometimes studios are waveless. Sometimes they're too fucking dry. They're too
Absolutely. I agree
quiet.
with that.
And I think I'm a kind of reactive artist where I
Mm-hmm.
like reacting to the place I'm in and interacting. So like creating in a void doesn't work for me. Um, I think so. I think there's something about listening, and then there's also I always have a mic up, and I this might be more pertinent to producers like self-producing artists,
Mm-hmm.
but I always have a mic up. I'm always improvising, and I always have it set up so that if this one take, the one time I do something has to be, it's the only time I do it, like it has to be recordable, you know? Like I don't really believe in scratch takes. And I've learned that about myself. I'm often a first take
Mm-hmm.
person and that so it has to work. I mean, Rachel dealt with this a bunch in the first tracks she mixed for me, what it feels like I was a little less on this path and there were issues in my audio, you know, and we had to kind of like work around it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, who cares? We'll work around the
Exactly. Exactly.
issues in the audio. But I think like knowing yourself and knowing that like every take from take zero could make it to the end, and you want to just be set up to be able to work with what you've recorded.
Right, right, right. I totally get that. I think I find a lot of beauty in the imperfections in music, and you know, there's some imperfections that are annoying. Like if you get a Nessing, you know, a Nessing singer,
Sure.
that hurts. But imperfections in music, there's a famous quote by Beck that he says that the best part of the recording is when you accidentally record a guy saying, "Hey, the burritos are here," you know, kind of thing, and you can make a song around that.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's also like the process of mixing takes you out of like your space. And my like the like aural space I produce in is like relatively limited compared to what y'all are working with as mix engineers. It's like putting a magnifying glass on everything and like all of a sudden the noise floor is so high and I'm like, oh God, I'm so sorry. You know? But that was after I put a lot of work into like creating some isolation in my studio, getting a fucking cloud lift for my
Hmm.
SM7, like those things, so that I
Right.
could at least deliver something listenable.
Totally get it. Yeah, totally get it.
And I also think just being like I love comping. I'm a really quick editor,
Mm.
and like being able to like edit and comp on the fly, make really fast decisions, and again like keep what you make sort of in a fury. That is always where the best shit comes from for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, so I find your music highly original and the furthest thing from derivative that I can think of. Having said that, can you name a couple of artists that influenced you along the way?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, I mean, so many. Uh, I think my like North Star artist is Erica Badu,
Oh, nice. Cool.
which probably is a funny answer. But like I fucking love her records, and every record is different, and I love the playfulness of her. Like, I mean, her live show is what really caught me, but she's a really important artist for me. And I would implore anyone who isn't like deep in her catalog to like get into it. Like up until current day, her
Hmm.
records are crazy.
Hmm.
I was very influenced by jazz. I'm really a deep Keith Jarrett
Oh
head
yeah, of
and a
course.
Charles Mingus head.
Yeah,
Those were
yeah.
my two favorite artists as a kid. I love Radiohead. I had not had exposure to Kate Bush before, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where like after like the 70th time someone was like, you kind of remind me of Kate Bush. I started listening and was like kind of shocked to
Yeah.
hear how much I had already been like walking the path, the Kate
Uh-huh.
Bush path.
Right.
Bjork for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
You like Sia at all?
I do like Sia.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
I could see that.
Chandelier fucked me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I love in Chandelier is when her voice breaks in
Hmm.
the halfway through the chorus. Then I got all the night, the way she and then my tears are such a high. It's that performance that like, but again, that's my ear. Like I'll love a song because of that.
Right, 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 right. Exactly. It's the
But I think
imperfections.
Sia is amazing, and I loved "Breathe Me" like back in the day. Sia, OG Sia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you ever watch 6 Feet Under?
I did, yeah.
The last scene of the last episode with
Right.
that song playing. I also like film score has been a really big part of
Mhm.
my life. John Bryan and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and John Bryan with Fiona Apple. Like I really love Thomas Newman. I really love film score, and I've been doing it a lot more.
Oh,
I'm
sweet.
making a lot of score work in the last couple of years. It's
That's
cool.
so much fun. I do
So
a
fun.
lot of it. I haven't actually had anything released, or published that way, but I do it just for fun. Honestly, I just take images and I write, the videos and stuff, and I write what I feel. And it's an exercise for me to
I
do it.
love it.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
So we're now in the desert, but last year we were living in LA, and we got the chance to go to this series of shows at the Disney Hall, which, by the way, is the best sounding hall in the world. It's an
Yeah,
amazing
I've
place.
heard.
But they were doing this series where they would play a movie. We saw Superman, Star Wars, and the original Nosferatu, the original vampire movie.
Mhm.
Three of those with the orchestra playing live the soundtrack of the movie. So they're showing the movie and the orchestra, and it was like breathtaking. It was literally breathtaking.
Wow.
Especially the Nosferatu, which is just a pipe organ. It's
Oh
just
my
it
God.
was insane. It was insane. So good. Anyhow,
Wow, that's so cool.
so now we've had the background out of the way. I'm going to get into a little bit more philosophical questions, and this is the gist of the class that I'm taking right now. It's about artistry, and it's not related very much to music per se. It's a lot more about artistry in general.
Okay,
And
cool.
it's a really cool class. And it's my very last class. I graduate. Yay.
Congrats.
Thank you. But yeah, it's funny because had I known what this class was like, I would have taken it much earlier in my program because I think it would have informed a lot of the stuff that I did. But whatever, it works anyway.
Cool.
So the first thing I have for you is in the liner notes for Captain Obvious, you stated that the approach was a technology you've been using to cope with the feeling of losing your nest. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Oh boy. Yeah, let's get into it. Um, oh, I in the pandemic got very tunnel vision, like
Hmm.
in a really intense, rough way. The like um the the necessity of like constant surveillance of like, was I too close to someone? Was I too far from someone? Can I touch you? What were you doing? My husband was doing all this food relief work, so there was never a point where we were fully like isolated,
Hmm.
the way that like everyone was sort of demanding in New York. And because of that, because he was like going out and delivering meals all day, I was kind of someone that like people didn't feel safe seeing,
Ah,
because it was like, oh, then he comes home. And we were just sort of like we'd given into this feeling like we were probably going to get sick. That early on, when getting sick felt like the
right, right,
worst, like that,
right.
you
Like
know,
you could die. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we're like we probably are gonna get sick. So I can't go anywhere near anybody I love. I can't see my mother. And just like it was so rough. And that like level of monitoring just like fucked with my brain so badly. And there's like a meditation practice that like a visual meditation practice of observation where like you let your eyes like rest on something and you see it for what it is, and you say like the lamp is yellow, and then you let your eye like turn to something else, but like the wall is green, like sort of like grounding about where you are. And there's a comparable oral practice by Pauline Oliveros called deep listening,
Hmm.
which is actually ironically was something I did in a group setting. I did like a group deep listening session right before pandemic, and I didn't know who Pauline Oliveros was, and then like turned to her philosophy. Anyway, these sort of like grounding techniques that were very much about like seeing things as they are, saying what naming what I'm experiencing. I found a comp in my writing lyrically. I'm a I don't know why I make music with lyrics in it, because really all I want to make is probably instrumental music. I don't want to have to explain myself or say what I'm
Uh,
composing about, but I'm composing like ultimately, like when I plumb down deep enough, this music comes from a place of really deep pain, and deep trauma. And I have had a really hard time being willing to say it like in words that people are going to hear. I used to like really not enunciate in my music. That was a feedback I often got was like, I don't know what you're saying, but it's beautiful. I would obfuscate on purpose.
Hmm.
So there was a point where like this sort of like health practice met this my as I was coming up against my demos that I loved and I was trying to find the words in it, which is what it feels like. I feel like I am excavating words, not that I'm like assigning words. And I just had to let myself say scary things.
Mm.
And what it felt like I was saying was the obvious. It was like my seeing your nose for your face, you know? And it was incredibly healing and a very strange sensation to know that I would leave a session only once I knew I'd actually said it. Like I wasn't hiding anything. And then I would go to sleep and wake up the next day and be like far away again and have to like dive deep, 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 deep to like say the thing. It was really hard. The fragile part is one of those. The fragile part, what it feels like, um, tough to love. A lot of those songs are just like so hard to get out, just like get it
Hmm.
out. But I really feel like I'm in service to the thing that wants to come out, and like ultimately that's my job.
The good
So
news is that it
that was
may
the
be,
toggle.
it may have been difficult to get out, but it's easy to listen to as a listener.
Isn't that odd?
It is incredibly odd, yeah. But yeah, I could listen to the record all day.
It's
Um,
funny how what came out was also like not that
no,
scary.
it was beautiful. A lot of it is beautiful. It's dark, but it's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. It's what happened. I came by this music really honestly, which is an interesting and like a proud thing for me to say.
Hmm.
Like it's not overwrought. I'm not like playing. I'm not like pretending.
Right,
Like
right, right,
really,
right.
I came by this record really honestly.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Can't ask for more out of an art piece of art. In the course of in this course that I'm taking, in this class that I've taken, we've gotten into some deep analysis of what art is in general and what it means. We have studied Socrates and Tolstoy and many others who had their, definitions or views on what art is. My question to you is, how do you define art for yourself, and what does it mean to you?
Mhm. Is it like, is the question art versus something? Like I feel like I'm in a conversation a lot recently about like art versus commerce, art versus entertainment. Um, is it, is there like another ax point on the axes against art or like just art? I'm just curious more of the
No, I
framing.
think it's just art. It's not as compared to anything. What does art mean to you? Why is it important to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think art at its core is a deep, 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 deep desire to express yourself so that you might understand others. But I think that's what's so funny about it is like the pursuit seems so egotistical and
Mhm.
so self-centered, but I really think the only reason we want to do it, we're the thing we can study, but the only reason we want to do it is to understand others,
Yeah, to communicate. Yeah.
to communicate,
Yeah.
and also to understand what's happened to us, to understand why people are the way they are,
Hmm.
why we are doing this thing with each other. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is, but I don't know. I don't know if the conversation about commerce or entertainment has come in, but I think that's an interesting one.
We're getting to that soon. Don't worry.
Okay,
We're
cool.
getting to
Awesome. All right, great.
that. So I often find myself frustrated as a music artist in that in our case as musicians, our art is not just art; it's also entertainment. Um,
Hmm.
and if you focus solely on the art, you may create great art, but no one ever hears, right? And that's a
Hmm.
risk you take. And I utterly resist the entertainment aspect. I always have, and that's why I will never be famous. It doesn't sit naturally with me because at the end of the day, I just don't give a rat's ass if the audience is having a good time or not. I don't. I'm playing my music, and if you like it, great, and not, that's fine too. I don't care, you know.
Hmm.
And I recognize that's not the best attitude to have for somebody that wants to make a career in music, but as a performing artist, that's where I stand.
I like
So
it.
my question to you is, how do you reconcile those two aspects?
Yeah. Um, hmm. I think there have been moments in my career when I was more willing to compromise for the promise of something doing better. commercially doing better.
Hmm.
Uh, and then when it didn't, the disappointment was like times 100 because I compromised something, you know?
Right, right.
So I think in my in making this record, I needed to know that I didn't compromise for the sake of something I think is going to happen. We all want very much to be heard and to like be and to be. I mean, I want to be heard so that I can be understood. I feel like that's kind of a crux in my life of like really wanting to be understood and heard, and that's sort of like a motivating piece much more than like being known or being famous.
Right,
And I want to be able to like pay my bills.
right.
I'm increasingly like less concerned. Like if I have to compromise, if I'm gonna find if someone told me like you can pay your bills but you have to make music like this, I just wouldn't
Right,
if it didn't align, you know?
right.
So thinking about where like how the like money moves happen outside of making the thing I make like feels like an important question. But for people who can line it up, that's so sick. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't
yeah.
think there's anything wrong with it. And I also don't think like, I think people are looking for a good time, but I think the definition of a good time is really different for everyone.
Right.
And I think that like I find music that's like hard to listen to incredibly satisfying to listen to.
Hmm.
I might not listen to it every day,
Right.
but like it's some of the most deep satisfying experiences I know because I'm not streaming it 1,000 times a day. Like in the landscape we live in, like that music is not going to do well or whatever do
Hmm.
well in this landscape. But like um yeah, I think the question is like pretty spindly, and also it's I my North Star on it is that I have to do it is what is right for me, you know.
Good. Yeah, yeah. And I can tell that from your music. Um, so the term aesthetics, and this is something we studied in
Hmm.
class deeply. The term aesthetics is generally defined as the philosophy of art and beauty. My question to you is, when you're creating music, is aesthetic something you are consciously aware of?
Hmm. Yes. Um, can you say the definition again? That's so
It's
interesting.
a philosophy of art and beauty.
Yeah. A thing that I come up against is how uh soft my voice is.
Hmm.
And especially as a producer, the instinct of almost every producer I've worked with to this point is to like highlight that and to like put it in a soft, beautiful space, a soft, beautiful sound and a soft, beautiful space. And I was getting like a lot of like, and I love her, bless her, but like a lot of like Nora Jones comps and like that just is not where I want to go musically.
Hmm.
And also it's not how I want to be understood. So actually, I feel like I think a lot about the tone and the timbre of my natural voice and how to create contrast with it and how to create tension. And I have like an aesthetic of like itchy beauty that like is really the feeling that I'm after in like what I'm making.
Hmm.
But I also like harmonically I love like a dripping, tortured, anthemic sort of like gushing, beautiful thing. There's like
Hmm.
a particular kind of song. Do you know the band Big Thief?
I do. Yeah.
That song, Not. That's I think it's from
Yeah.
last or whatever
Right.
two record cycles ago. That's like my perfect kind of song. A song like that that's cyclical, that like that just spins and goes and it's just like there's like a particular drippy kind of chord progression. Like I'll forever take that. I'll listen to songs like that for till the end of time.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I think I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like I'm oriented toward a kind of harmonic beauty that I like just love. And then I think a lot about how to contextualize the nature of my voice and work against it, you know, to
Right.
create like the kind of balance I'm looking for. Because if I get called a chanteuse one more time, I'm gonna like kill somebody. And I can't help I mean, I can help how I sound. I've struggled against it a lot,
Yes,
you
yes,
know?
yes, yes.
But that like to be put there drives me fucking crazy.
Well, a funny story about voice. So when I spend I'm 59 years old, and I spend the vast majority of my life not as a singer, but as a guitar player. I only started singing back in 2015, almost by necessity. And I started working with a coach. And when I went to the coach to start working with her, parentheses, my biggest hero musically and songwriting speaking is Tom Waits. And
Hell yeah.
and I was like doing my best Tom Waits gravelly thing, and she immediately looked at her keyboard and said, do this, do that," and she said, you're singing way below your range. You know,
Mm,
you have no business singing where you're singing. Try up here." I was like,
ouch.
"But I need to sound manly, you know." She has nothing to do with that. Just pay attention to me, and she was absolutely right. Once I found my range, I had a much bigger range than I thought I did.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's yeah.
But that to want a sound is your prerogative also. You can get it in a different register, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone talk you out of being Tom Waits.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's see what else you got. Oh, this is an interesting one. So, do you see or feel any correlation between your health and wellness and your creative output?
Mm, no.
No? Okay, good. No, that's perfectly fair. Um, so when I listen to your music, and especially when I pay close attention to the lyrics, I have this mental picture of a Zen practitioner in deep meditation. That's the mental picture. I picture
Mm,
you in the middle of a Zen studio, you know, with your legs crossed, singing, right? Do you actually practice meditation?
yeah. Yeah. I've been more devout in younger days. There was a point, I think probably for almost 10 years where I practiced and sat twice a day for 20 minutes. My mom is a really avid meditator and teaches meditation, and so it's like it's a tool that I can access pretty quickly. But something I'll say, and it's funny, this is a conversation that's coming up a lot with my cohort, my creative cohort, that like I think of meditation as a soothing practice,
Hmm.
and it like worked really well to help me kind of like kick anxiety, like deep sort of like what would be thought of as like genetic anxiety without having to be on meds, which is amazing. And making art was a self-soothing practice when I started as a kid, and I really like I need to be careful not to go to not, I also have to be willing to engage in discomfort in order to make music.
Hmm.
So the like so there's that part of it. And the other thing I'll say is in recently in my meditation practice, just as of like the last couple of months, I think I've turned a corner where I can feel that it's about my meditation is actually about being open and vulnerable to the world and not about trying to like settle and ground myself. And I think that that is going to be key to the next thing that I make.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's going to be like a difficult porousness rather than like a closed off grounding thing.
Okay. Cool.
You are
Um,
the first person I've told that
nice.
to.
And we have it on record.
Yeah.
So, well, first, before I ask the actual question I was going to ask, are you presently signed with a label?
I release on my own label, Switch It Records. Yeah.
Same with me. I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. So, would you ever consider signing with a major label?
It would have to be a really good contract.
Right. That's how I feel. I said I'm not giving away anything in my artistic process to satisfy a label. So,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree.
I'd have to know that I had a real champion there who was going to fight, who understood what I did and was going to fight for it.
Right.
And what's really funny is that's a new answer for me. I think 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I would have given anything. But the more I've had a label, the more I've learned that, like, if you don't have an advocate, like an advocate who's just so fucks with you and is gonna like help you preserve your vision, it can just be so, I mean, like ending up on the shelf, making something you love and having it end up on the shelf and not being able to do anything with it. It's just like my fucking nightmare.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, uh, in a different conversation, we'll compare notes about labels and see, because I have a lot of questions for you. I've had the label. My label started as a vanity label, just to release my own stuff, but it's now grown to 14 different artists.
Mhm.
And it's been that has been over, let's see, from 12, that's 8 and 5, that's 13 years. Over 13 years, I've grown this label.
Cool.
Very slow growth, obviously, because there are only 14 artists, but that's by design, honestly.
Mhm.
We're really careful about who we've set it as a community, and the vibe and the attitude and the energy that artists bring into the label is probably the most important part of the whole thing, so that it all works.
Mhm.
So that's why we're so selective about it. Anyhow, um, I think this is my last question in the process section, and then we'll get into something else. I'm sorry, in the philosophy section. How do you define success for your music endeavors?
Such a good question. I think that's something I struggle with. I struggle with not having an external definition of success. Like re holding on to my own internal definition of success is really hard. And
Hmm.
I'll think that I'm hanging on to it and then find myself disappointed and I'm disappointed by someone else's metrics, you know?
Right, right.
I think the thing that has been tried and true for me is really throwing myself into an idea of what the performance is going to look like. Performing is where I get like all of my juice. Like
Hmm.
that's where like I can really actualize the thing. And it's being able to perform in like a flexible and a strange way is like very, 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 very important to me. So I think with releasing Captain Obvious, I set myself up with a rubric of success around like the record allowing me, giving me opportunity to play certain kinds of shows. I really wanted to play solo piano in the round at like a beautiful Bosendorfer and like sell it out surrounded by
Hmm.
people and was able to do that. And I wanted to play a club show full band and do some like weird performance art shit. And I was able to do that. And like the leveraging the thing that I've made to bring me into performance spaces that I want to be in has been a way to close the loop in terms of feeling like I put something out. I'm not just waiting for response back. And then I think like I've always been a musician,
Uh-huh.
and having like big, meaningful thumbs up from my community and from
Yeah.
like artists that I admire when they have written me and been like, this is the best thing you've done. Like, I have to take that to the bank.
Right.
That's
Right.
got like that means so much to me,
Yeah.
you know, because I'm just trying to participate. Like, I'm just trying to like hold up my end of the deal in my community and like be meaningful in my community and like participate in a community of artists, you
Right.
know? Um, so yeah, there's that. And then of course, like you want people to hear your shit, but there's in this like day and age, the barriers to that, like that just can't be like Spotify playlisting cannot be the marker of success.
Thank
I've
you.
also really learned, I mean, I had a song that was placed in Euphoria and was on like the official soundtrack and just was like my monthly plays at a point a couple years ago was like in the 100,000s, which was shocking, all on this one song.
Mm.
And like the nature of that platform is that like people were listening to that. They didn't know who they were listening to or what they were listening to, but they were listening to it constantly. And I made a couple bucks from it.
Mm.
But it's siloed, that listening experience is siloed from me as an artist.
Right.
And I can't find those people and they can't find me. And that's just like, you know, that's the state we're in. So even though it feels good to get playlist placement, and I was happy to get a little, I'm happy to get a little radio. It just can't be the only marker of success. I didn't know if that's is that a leading answer? Is that what you
That
were
is
wondering about?
that is what I was hoping you would say. One thing that I very often do in the label we have several categories of artists, meaning old ones like me and much younger ones in their 20s,
Mm,
and I serve as a mentor to a lot of those younger ones. And one
mhm,
thing I often tell them and suggest to them is that they need to find success in the different objectives and milestones. So the fact that you released a record, that is a success you should celebrate. It doesn't matter if
Mm,
you got you're getting huge numbers in your streams or whatever. That's just that. The other thing is don't let your success be defined by sales either. That's
mhm.
a metric, but it's not the only metric. There's
Yeah.
so many other things. So I spend a lot of time trying to encourage them so that they don't get discouraged by, when I was in my 20s,
Totally.
the only measure of success when I was in my 20s was being on the cover of the Rolling Stone. That was,
Hmm.
and I was like, that's why my band imploded.
I mean, but that's a real thing to go for, and there are ways to go for it. But
Yeah,
those things, like the things one does to get there, are really specific, you know?
right,
And like as I'm releasing more and getting older, like those just aren't things I'm willing to do. And
right.
um, so then the question is like, what's going to make me get the things that I want in life that like I really want. And a lot of that's experience, like performance experience.
Right.
So that's just kind of what I've gone after and how I've positioned things so that I am not discouraged, as you say, so you keep going.
Yeah,
It's so hard though. It is so, 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 so hard.
it is. So, and in the class text, we studied that creativity is a habit, and that the best creativity is the result of good work habits. First of all, do you agree with that? And second of all, can you take me through your work habits?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do I agree with that? I can, this is related to the health question.
Hmm.
I can struggle with being too committed to routine.
Hmm.
And like, I think that I'm a little bit of a burst. I'm like a feast and famine kind of
Hmm. Okay.
artist.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think my routines help me live. And I do spend a lot of time like making sure my tools are sharpened. Like I wasn't writing at all for the last 3 months, but I was like practicing a lot, like shedding a lot. Um, but I don't think I'm a write everyday person. Like I don't think that works for me. And it also doesn't work for what I'm going for musically, which is requires like a little bit of endurance and like struggle.
Hmm.
So that's I've just noticed that I'm a little bit of like again like feast and famine. I'll have these big spurts and I'll be committed to getting everything out and I'll like say no to everything and I'll turn down seeing friends and just try and like work as much as I have like appetite to, and then I'll really be laying low and kind of like recovering from that. I guess that's a routine. It's just not that's not like a daily kind of routine.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah, that
Okay,
answer your
that's good.
question a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Um, how much time do you allot to practicing your instrument versus writing versus producing on a daily or weekly basis? How
Great
does that balance
question.
look like?
Well, at the moment, like I was mentioning, for the last 3 months, I've been probably practicing uh like 10 or 12 hours a week, which
Wow.
is a lot. Yeah. And I haven't had that kind of level of practice in a while, except when I'm getting ready for shows. Actually, so
Okay.
that's not true at all. When I'm getting ready for shows, I'm putting in that amount of time. Um, because I want to be like really fluid on stage. I don't want to be thinking about what I'm doing. I want it to just come out of me. So, and I believe a lot in like sitting at the instrument, picturing the audience, picturing yourself there. And when those shows were all Ableton-y shows, I was just constantly performing that Ableton show, like in my studio, just doing my thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I probably between those two things, preparing for shows, preparing to write, getting stretching your ears, all the things I've touched on, I'd say like in general, it's like a 10 to 12 hours a week thing for me of like of being in it, whatever the it is.
Okay.
Um, I wish I was practicing songwriting. Like I just was away for a couple weeks and I brought a MIDI keyboard and my favorite books of poetry and I really want to just be wandering around Tokyo, like messing around with words and language. And it's just not how it works for me ever.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I really, really, really wish it did. Um, but I'm not there yet. And I also wish that I was like, in quieter times, like looking up tutorial videos and learning new tricks on Ableton and getting plugin packs, and that also is not what I do. But I know so many musicians who do, who use their like quiet periods to like get new techniques under their belt, whatever.
Mm.
Oh, I really wish that was me. It's not how I do it. I only will learn something when I have to, when it's like, I need to do this thing right now. Yeah, I'm a little bit of like a chaotic worker, I think. I work in urgency. But then I slow and steady practice and like do my thing. I love practicing. I love study like research, which kind of is more about like reading and like critical theory and performance theory.
Mhm.
I like really love kind of like getting into a heady space on like Meredith Monk or like Joan Jonas, like um what's the term I'm trying to think of? Oral histories. Like
Mhm.
there's a beautiful oral history of Angels in America. Like that shit feels like I'll just live in that space for a really long time
Mhm.
and then come out and make something.
This is not an actual question in my interview. I'm just curious now. Do you ever get inspiration from reading books or stories or something like that for songwriting? I mean,
Inspiration for topically.
exactly.
Also, I wish, but no.
Not really. Okay.
I just don't write topically. I like really write feelingsy, and
Hmm.
then the subject matter like kind of unfolds.
Yeah. Well,
Um, yeah.
whatever you call what you do, just keep doing it, please, for my sake. What is your favorite part of music making?
That's so hard. Um, I mean, honestly, my answer like right now, I love being able to share the music, and I really love improvising, and I love improvising with trusted friends.
Wow.
I have a long, long, long time relationship with a bass player who was the first bass player in the first band I was in college, and we were in many bands together, and we had a practice. I kid you not, probably those 10 to 12 hours I'm talking about, we would commit alone to playing together. We played together constantly, and he lives in Atlanta now. He's not in music like professionally, and he came over this week, and I just like threw up a bunch of stuff in the studio, pulled up an Ableton session, pressed record, and we just like played for 3 hours.
Nice.
And I was just like, oh, this is just it. This is it. It's that communication to like
Mhm.
feel fluent and communicate musically just is it for me.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I've noticed when I listen to your songs, and please don't be offended by this, but I don't find that your songs are rhymey. I think
Hmm.
your songs are more about cadence, and
Hmm.
I value that immensely because that's my approach as well. So that's why I noticed it immediately. Um, do you generally write lyrics or melody first, given that?
They come at the same time
Uh-huh.
via improvising. Like I improvise in shapes, in like
Hmm.
mouth shapes, and then often a word comes out or a couple words come out, and melodies almost always are accompanied by mouth shape. Like I have a sense of
Yeah.
what shape it's going to sound like, and then often I'll listen back and hear words in it, or like in the process of improvising through it a lyric will come, or a
Right.
refrain will come. That's it's I agree. I agree that there's more cadence than rhyme, and also I love I'm interested in, I don't love, but I'm interested in repetition, like
Hmm.
in saying the same words over and over again.
Hmm.
There's like a little bit of a serialist musician in me lyrically,
Uh-huh.
where so yeah,
That's very cool.
that's kind of how it happens.
This may be a bit of a loaded question, but would you mind taking me through a step by step process of one production of yours? Just
Sure.
one, yeah.
Will you tell me one? That'll help.
Vertigo.
Okay,
Please.
let's go. Yeah, Vertigo started when I was in Mexico City. I was wandering around and I was outside that dance class and I heard that teacher go, "Here we go."
Uh-huh.
And then, and those little kids tapping their feet, you know? And I took a little recording of it. And I was listening to, don't know what I was listening to. Maybe I was listening to some like reggaeton or something. Like there was some kind of like dark, gurgly thing that I heard on the radio or something earlier in the day when I brought that sample back home. And this was like months after I recorded it. And I just like a light bulb went off, and I got home and paired that recording with a kind of like really growly, bitey synth,
Hmm.
and probably some like 808s. And then I remember doing like creating a clap pattern against it,
Hmm.
that, and then layering that, and so that I didn't have to use that sample the whole time, but could like I love collage. I think my production style is like really
Yeah.
collage-y, and I love the musical concept of voice leading, like the theory concept of voice leading, and like selling the ear on things through like close proximity and changing as few things as possible. That's definitely how I go. So that started with drony bass note. Like I remember the F and the F sharp, that like little half steppy thing, bitey thing, the 808s thing, and then this. And then I definitely was just like in a fucking mood. That song is the most, that song is the most old Raya was of Captain Obvious. Like for people who like my first record, that song has all the darkness from the first
Uh-huh.
record.
Uh-huh.
And I think I knew that when I was making it. I was like, let's give them something. Let's give them something they like, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
Um, and so that started there. And I recorded a lot of different versions of the Vertigo like refrain,
Uh-huh.
and not on top of each other, but just like in stacks, muting, stack, muting, stack, muting, and just had like a whole shit ton to work with. And then oh my God, that it was the summer of 2021. It was like the first summer we were kind of out the house, you know?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And we my husband and I were traveling a lot. Like we were finally getting invited to shit, and we were like going to Cape Cod, and we were going to Cold Spring, New York, and we were kind of like in the car a lot. And I was just like addicted to working on my record. I couldn't imagine not working on it. And I remember so clearly being in the car, like in Connecticut, driving toward Boston, and with cans on, like, and something hit about the arrangement of that song, using sort of like a copy paste collage approach to all the different lyric takes I'd taken, because I
Hmm.
like the idea of the voice sounding like different characters, which I don't do. I mean, I do it sometimes with the pitched up thing and pitched
Hmm.
down,
Hmm.
like those are characters on the record, but I felt like I had such different tude in the different takes,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like different, like ego, id, super ego energies. And in the car, I edited most of that arrangement, like with the concept of those like different voices.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was like kind of how that happened, and then I don't remember the rest of it.
Nice,
But I
nice.
remember all that really clearly, like it was yesterday.
So I think it's kind of a follow-up to that. Are there any rituals or routines that you follow when you're recording? Or
Improvising, for
yeah,
sure.
improvising. Yeah, that's a good one. So I assume you probably record all your improvisations, right? So that you
Oh
can,
yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes,
it
yes,
can
yes.
inform to the rest. Okay.
Oh yeah, because there's always something in it.
Right, right. Um, do you follow a formal plan when marketing your music?
Ooh, what do you mean?
Like, do you have literally a marketing plan, or like, do you go into that level of planning, or do you just kind of look for opportunities?
My managers have.
Okay, okay, yeah, fair enough.
I yes, but need to be a little bit isolated from that. But like every record I've made, I had two different managers on the two different records. There's been like long conversations about the music videos, the photo shoots, the visual identity, the language of the record, and then like the rollout, the live shows, the activations, a kind of like pop-ups or installation stuff. Because I love performance so much, I'm really game to be like, yeah, put me in a shop window and I'll perform the same song 200 times. Like that shit just like lights me up.
Right.
So yeah, yes. And then for Captain Obvious, I had someone working. I had a publicist for the very first time,
Oh,
which
nice.
was which was definitely a marketing plan.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
she had a plan.
Cool, cool. Um, so this question is from one of my label mates. Your cover art is consistently really intriguing and beautiful. How do you come up with your ideas for a cover art and see them through?
Great question. Um, I have worked with really great photographers who both instances of the art creation were kind of incidental. Like,
Uh,
I love making music videos because it kind of feels like performing. And the cover of Captain Obvious was shot as a BTS of the music video
okay.
for what it feels like. So I think like like really a photographer that's really willing to like talk about symbolism and like talk through set design and art department kind of like stuff helps set me up. And then when I'm performing like on a set, like for the music video, then I'm like really in character. And so I think it's like probably not an accident that the album art all came from like scenarios like that. But I really like thinking about like symbolism and like the like visual artistic like iconography of like what's happening on the record, yeah, that's been my approach.
Nice,
Pretty
nice.
much consistently.
Um, okay, I think this is our final question. Do you have a
Okay.
philosophy when it comes to performing live, specifically as how you interact with your audiences?
Woof. Yes. uh, I my ethos is and has always been to let the audience witness me go through something. Which means like the pressure is on me to really go there,
Hmm.
Like no one's showing up to see you play your song well or to see you like do a good job and
Right,
look
right, right,
cool.
right.
Um, Accuracy is not it. Although I really hold my bands to high standards, but that's for my own sake because I get so distracted when something's wrong,
Right.
But from me, accuracy does not matter. It's like are you going through something or not?
Hmm.
So letting myself really descend and like really like go there is like hugely important to me. And in on my first record, that their place was like really dark and really kind of exhibitionist, like really like I performed like in a wig in a plastic box, like very like really inverted, like really inside myself. And
Hmm.
all the Captain Obvious stuff was really out and really sort of like I remember feeling before the show at Public Records, like I just want to love on all of these people.
Hmm.
And so there have been like different ways that that's come out, but the like core thing, the thing that I think is my responsibility is um, to let people witness me go through something. You got
Yeah,
to have skin in the game.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's more about an experience than it is about, yeah, I hate it when I go see bands and it sounds like I'm listening to the CD at home. It's like, well,
Right.
this is not it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just an experience, but a true experience. Like,
Right.
I also hate it when there's a performative element that just isn't resonating or doesn't feel like
Hmm.
authentic. And that doesn't mean it has to be honest. I fucking love lying in art. Lying is great.
Yeah.
I'm not asking to like see what you ate for breakfast.
Right.
I'm not asking for like fidelity to a truth,
Right.
but there has to be like a commitment to the honesty of the vision of what you're going through, you
Agreed.
know?
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I lied. There is one more question that I
Okay,
promised I would ask, and we have 3 minutes, so I'm going to ask it.
great.
One of my artists, the artist under the label, asked me to ask you this: Do you have any advice or concrete next steps to follow for an artist looking to produce themselves?
Mhm. Well, you got to get a DAW. You
Good
got
place
to
to start.
get,
Yeah.
I think, get a DAW, get really curious about it, treat it like a palette, make it so that it's delightful to open, like add color. My Ableton sessions are all in disco mode, you
Mm,
know? And part of why I can't look at Logic anymore is because it's so gray and sad. Like you make it enticing to you.
Mm,
And then my other trick, and the thing that's worked for me really well over the years, is when you become in, especially like toward the end of the day, when you're working on something, you become really engrossed in what you're doing, and you start to see like, oh, this is what I want to do next and next and next. Like make a list of those things, do all of them except for a couple, so that the next day you know where you're starting,
take off, yeah.
and you also are excited about it. Like a little bit of deprivation of like mark the idea, make sure that like you know where you want to go, but like I closed up my session last night without like fully syncing my bass performance. I had like an ARP on a BPM that I didn't know on my synth. And so when I played bass along with it, I was just going by ear, but I didn't like fully catch all the like harmonic changes. And
Mm,
I was so excited about like the little, 10 minutes I was going to spend with those two elements soloed, syncing it up.
mhm.
But I closed my laptop and I went to bed. And then this morning I was like, get to go in, and then you're in the session and your ears are fresh and your mind is
Right.
fresh. But I need those little breadcrumbs to sort of like bring me back to the session. It
Right.
needs to be compelling to
That's
me.
that's great advice. I'm actually going to implement that one myself, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, Raya, thank you so much for your generous time. You've been wonderful, lovely. It's been very insightful, and I can't thank you enough. And I will definitely be in touch to discuss other things that we have to discuss.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pepe. I'm
All right.
honored. I'm honored to have been asked. It was really fun to chat about this stuff.
Cool, cool. Well, have a
Cool.
wonderful weekend, and like I said, I'll send you something so you can review it before I do anything with it. Your blessing is important to me.
Okay, that sounds good.
Have a good one. Take care.
Bye. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.